Hello, I'm Terry David Mulligan. Welcome to the Terry David Mulligan YouTube channel. I wish I didn't have to say the whole thing, but that's what they called it. I have a special guest. I have remembrance of a special guest on this edition, this week's show. For those of you who are not Canadian or did not live in the West, Red Robinson, the name might ring a bell. I've heard that name before. For those of us who grew up in Vancouver and the West, Red Robinson was the messenger. He was the guy who was brave enough to play rock and roll when rock and roll was banned for the most part. He found a station in Vancouver, found guys to let him in, let him play the music. He took a lot of heat from parents who called rock and roll the devil's music, because that's what the newspapers were writing about, and that he was a messenger from the devil. He just hung up on them and carried on. And best of all, Red played the hits, whether they were white artists or black artists. He made no difference, no distinction. He just played the damn hits, and they were really good. Red Robinson was born in 1937 on Vancouver Island, where I am, Comox. But he ended up in Vancouver, and when he was 16, 1953, just as rock and roll was coming over the horizon, Red Robinson was in the right place at the right time, and he was the right guy. He heard rock and roll, and it stirred him as rock did because there was no rock and roll. There was Dean Martin, there was Sinatra, there was Andy Williams, there was Perry Como. There was no rock and roll. There was rhythm and blues, but it wasn't being played where we lived. Anyway, he was 16 years old when he walked in and convinced CJR, I think it was, to let him play the music in the afternoons. And he started to play Fats Domino, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers, Ray Charles, Bill Haley and the Comets, Elvis Presley. And he got to meet all of them and more, like hundreds of artists he got to meet. And he became friends with some of them. And so those are the stories he's about to tell. This first interview with Red Robinson, because there's two of them, was March of 2022. I didn't think it went well, on my part actually, and so I decided to do a second interview in October of that year. So there's two of them. This is part one of our conversation with Red Robinson. He's not the ball of fire that you grew up with if you listen to him on the radio. He's lost a step, but he still had his mind, he had his sense of humor, his sense of himself. So enjoy this first interview with Red Robinson. I'll be back with part two after this. We lost him April 1st of 2023. We're remembering Red Robinson. Hey, Red.
Hi, it's Terry, isn't it?
It's Terry Mulligan. That's right. Terry David Mulligan. Yes, I was a lonely disc jockey on the prairies in Regina.
I can't hear him.
And
Terry, he can hardly hear you. So
I was merely a boy from North Vancouver, working on the prairies in Regina, and you made a phone call and said, "Would you like to come home?" And I said, "Yes, I'd like to come home." And I came back to CFUN, and you saved my life and made a career. Thank you. I'm thanking you.
No, you made your own career, just like everybody does.
Yeah.
Somebody can give you a break, but you make your own career.
Who gave you your break?
Al Jordan.
Wow.
I was a kid going to school, and I listened to his afternoon show called Theme for Teens.
Yeah.
And I phoned him and I said, "Could you use some company down there?" And he said, "Come on down." And I went down, and it took it off from there.
Can you describe what radio was like for people who are not?
It was
old
free
enough
form. I mean, you just went on and did your thing. If you didn't rate, you were fired. Get out of the station.
How did you pick your music, Red? What, or did it pick it for? Or did it pick itself? What happened?
You grab whatever you felt like. I mean, when I said it was freeform, it really was, really freeform and no format. I mean, you made your own up as you went along, but you did pick your own music. And that's where I discovered a lot of people I never knew about. People like, Ray Charles, people like Fats Domino. I never heard of them, but boy, when I played their music, it resonated with me, no question.
So, and of course, both of those artists were black. There was no black music being played on Canadian radio and much of American radio. So, what was the feedback from the audience or from listeners when you started to play Ray Charles? When you started to play the black artists? Did people make any considerations that they were black, or was it just music that was working for them?
Well, it was, I realized there was hardly any discrimination in the teenage world, but the adults would phone and say, "What are you doing playing that N music?" You know what I mean? I'd say, "What are you talking about? You're the devil's advocate," and they'd go on and on and on. And I just, so thank you very much and hang up. What can you do? What can you say to a bigot? Nothing. You
Nothing.
Can't say anything.
But you know what? And I know for a fact that you would have absolutely loved those early days because you were riding a speeding train. It was fantastic. The phones were ringing when you went out to make appearances. What kind of reaction did you get on those stages?
Unbelievable. I mean, you got to understand something. I was 18 or 19 at the time, and when I got to Kit Showboat as an example, in 1956, I was at CJOR. There were 15,000 people there. I thought, what the hell? 15,000. I knew rock and roll was here to stay. No question. I didn't put myself into the middle of it all, but I was already in the middle of it all. And it was, fantastic. Unbelievable times to live through and make it on the other side.
Let me compare notes here for a second, Red. There's parts of my life that I can't remember. For example, I just came across a Joni Mitchell interview that I can't even remember doing.
Oh, I know.
How is that possible that I can be there, be in her company for an hour and not remember doing the interview? Anyway, I'm going to run the interview. So it applies to you. How much of the years do you remember? Certain moments?
I remember quite a bit. Just, how we're born, either you have a memory or you don't. And I found it fascinating. I got it from my mother. She was a memory person, and she passed it on to me. And I remember all the early interviews, all of them, because you know why? I would take the groups in town. It was a very hands-on world, and I'd take them down from the cave to a high school or wherever.
Yeah.
And that was the first in the city. I think Cullen did it, but only with people he liked. Which was not rock and roll.
No, it wasn't. But Jack Cullen was a broadcaster. The first compelling interview that you did, name me somebody who walked into the studio and you went, "Oh, this guy's great."
Bill Haley.
Yeah.
He was amazing because of his ability to describe things and, put it all in the context of where rock and roll came from and all of that. He was like a log, a log that, he didn't forget anything. He forgot all the kinds of music. He didn't forget any kind of music. And his was a background. He was Bill Haley and the Saddle Man.
Yeah.
That's what it said on the label, Bill Haley and the Saddle Man. And he converted to rock and roll by appearing on Alan Freed Show.
Sure.
In New York. And the bang, it just took off from there. Rock Around the Clock was the biggest selling record to its day I don't think anything beat it until, along came Elton John and
Yep.
did it.
And of course, it was a brief moment in time for him, Bill Haley. He was there and he was gone because Elvis came along.
He warned me. He said,
Yeah.
I said, Bill, you're riding high. You've got the #1 record.
Yep. Can you remember the first time the Elvis music came into the studio, that first record?
He said, there's a good looking kid in Tennessee coming up. And I met him and he's terrific. And it's the end of my career. I said, what? He said, it's the end of my career. They call him the Hillbilly Cat and his name is Elvis Presley. I said, you gotta be kidding, Elvis Presley. He said, yes, that's his name. He was a guy that saw today, but also tomorrow.
Sure.
And
that your time with Elvis.
Oh, yes.
Did he, I know that he was there with the press. Did you get any private moments with him where you got a sense of the guy?
I did, because we were in that dressing room for 45 minutes by ourselves.
Ah, nice.
It was fantastic. He was just a down-to-earth guy, like somebody I'd gone to school with. It's no conceit, none. People don't believe me when I say that, but he didn't have any. He had cared about how he looked. Vanity he had, but he didn't have conceit. Amazing kid.
Was he was Elvis aware of what was happening to him?
He knew. Some people thought he was a dummy, but he wasn't really. No. Intellectually, maybe, not as quick off the mark as an intellectual, but he understood what was going on. And he had this manager who was creepy, kind of a guy who traveled with him. And actually, Colonel Parker wasn't supposed to, but he came to Vancouver.
Huh.
Yeah, he was with Elvis in Vancouver. And every once in a while, Elvis would be with a picture of the two of us. He'd be looking over to see what the colonel said. Can I say this and can I say that? Yeah.
Control.
The colonel was a control freak.
Sure. So, and then somebody like Little Richard was completely different, totally different. Nobody was going to tell Little Richard what to say or what to play. You must have enjoyed that.
Oh yeah. That was the freedom we had, and he had. He just got up there and sang what he felt like. And you can't do that today. You know what I mean? The record company won't let you, and you got so many managers, you don't know when to spit, It's terrible.
Did thank you for your books, by the way. We got 3 of them out there. I love The Last DJ, The Last Broadcast. The 6, how about this? Can you give me a handful, maybe 6, of the most compelling artists that you met? The ones that stayed with you the longest and most vivid.
Well, Brother Ray was great. And, his real name was Ray Charles Robinson. I think Marty Robbins was Marty Robinson. I never forgot that. Yeah. We got along. He was a memorable guy. Others that I met and they carried on. We all carried on. Oh, Roy Orbison.
Oh, yeah.
How can I forget Roy? I mean, he was an amazing guy because he said to me, when Les Vaughn and I brought him in, we had a company called Jaguar.
Yeah.
And we brought him in. And he said, they're going to laugh when I get out there for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to be all right because I'll start singing and they'll pay attention. Isn't that amazing? He was right. He went out, he was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof. And then all of a sudden, he started to sing and the crowd was on his side. Amazing.
Did you and Jerry Lee get along?
Pardon?
Did you and Jerry Lee Lewis get along?
Oh, who could get along with Jerry Lee, the killer? I think they called him the killer because I think he bumped people off. He was a nervous cat. I know he was jealous of Elvis always, because he got, became a star, and Jerry Lee could have been. He was struggling, but he had a couple of hits and then went in the ditch. I don't know why, but then I do know why, because his personality wouldn't allow him to be anything. He couldn't be. He was a nasty man, really. He still is, I guess, an old nasty man.
Hey, he's the last one standing, is what he is. Listen, Chuck Berry. Any memories that you want to share with Chuck Berry?
Well, he played for a used car lot before we brought him in, and then when we brought him in, he asked for more money, or he wasn't going to continue. And I had an answer that I can't believe I came up with. I said, Chuck, they saw you get up there, and it was at the Coliseum at the PNE, and an open floor. Nobody was sitting down. And I said, they saw you come out and tune up, and so they know I brought you here. So if you don't want to play, that's fine. Oh, that did it. He got up and sang "Johnny Be Good" right after that. He was a problem, a big problem, for not only me, but everywhere he went. And
okay, here comes one of the tough questions, but I'm dying to hear the answers. Red Robinson, by the way, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know for a fact because I was there that day.
You were there.
The concerts that stayed with you, concerts that you attended and you went, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. Concerts. How about concerts?
Oh, concerts. Well, Presley, of course, I emceed that one. Matter of fact, I emceed a lot of those. Bill Haley and Elvis. Little Richard was a character, a real character. Oh, the Beatles, of course.
Yep.
Matter of fact, the British magazine wrote up, ladies and gentlemen, you may not know this guy from the other side of the pond, as they call the Atlantic, but he emceed Bill Haley and the Comets, Elvis, and Eddie Cochran, and he went on and listened to them all. And I thought, what the hell? They know that much? They said on the show, yep, this guy did it all. And I felt good about that. I felt good.
I was so proud of you to be inducted into that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that they included the DJs. That was the important thing. Sure, the artists were going to be there, but to have the announcers who played the music recognized at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you were one of them, that was a big deal.
Well, what's that woman's name? That Erica, who had a book, not a book, but a magazine called Rock and Roll Radio and Records. She said, she threw a party for all of the DJs. She said, to hell with them. At the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Without these people, there'd be no mention of Little Richard or Elvis or anybody. And she was right. She was a lady with a lot of foresight, and she understood. And it was special being there. But she's right. She was right. Without the disc jockeys, where the hell would all these artists be? Nowhere. And some of the artists agreed with her.
Do you listen to radio today?
No, I don't. It's pretty pablum oriented.
Yeah.
If you're stupid, you listen. Yeah.
Who was the best announcer you heard?
The last announcer?
No, who was the best? Who was the guy that really...
the best for diction and everything? Al Jordan.
Wow.
He was the greatest.
What a great voice.
Diction.
What a great guy.
And a good man.
And a good man. And a good man.
And a good man, yeah.
And who was the wildest on the air? Who was just the wildest announcer on the air?
Well, they say that Drex is the wildest. I don't think so. I think Mad Mel was.
Down in Australia.
Pardon?
In Australia. Was
Yeah.
Mad Mel in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now tell me what's going on, Red, with RPM and the gathering of all of the announcers today on the internet. How's that working?
I'm stepping down as the spokesperson for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for broadcasters. Something Michael Godin and I started 12 years ago or more. 20? Oh, where's the time gone when you're having fun? But anyway, this setback I've had by falling on the ice at the Giants hockey game, dropping the puck. I won't forget what Bruce Allen said. Red, your job was to drop the puck, not yourself. Very funny guy. Anyway, those were magic moments, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the guys and now women too, about time we had some ladies in there.
Yep.
A cadre of people have come forth and they want to help. And that's great. But it's time for me to move on. I don't know where, but I'll find someplace. No, it's just time. You know, everything reaches the time.
Yep.
I knew that when I did my last radio show.
Yep.
And you can hear it on there. And you can read about it in the last DJ. I just had it. How can you do something all those years? I mean, I was 80 when I quit. I can't believe that. I was 80 years old, and I felt like a kid. But the thing is, you can't continue. I'm always critical of people that carry on beyond what, they're not the capabilities, but beyond their popularity. Why did they do it? Because they love the business. I understand that.
Yep.
But it's not that they shouldn't.
But it's how they live and breathe. It's what we do.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
you're still doing it right now.
I'm still doing it right now. And I have moments when I say, why am I working so hard? Why do I keep doing this? But you instilled that. You and I had the same moment.
Because it's something you love. I loved what I did. I never had a bad day that I can remember. Maybe a couple of times when I had a little bit of what do you call it? Vertigo. I get vertigo once in a while.
Okay.
And those were only bad days, but I didn't have a bad day business-wise. I didn't have a bad day with radio. I always loved it. I think it's the same for you.
Yep. Hey, Red, all of the you started those wonderful RPM meetings at the White Spot on Georgia Street, which is no longer, but the meetings carried on, and now it's gone online. And so all the generations of announcers in and around Vancouver are meeting and exchanging stories. And we thank you for starting that.
Well, somebody had to do it. I'll tell you where it started, at Rick Honey's funeral. Somebody said to me, why do we always see each other, different radio stations? Why do we see each other only at funerals? And I said, you've got a point. We should have a get together with the disc jockeys.
Yeah.
And that's when we started the, RPM, as we call it, rotation per minute. Yeah. But it stood for radio personnel memories. And we all got together at the White Spot, and Ron Toigo, the owner of White Spot, said, take it. They just pay for what they order. You don't have to give me an advance. Nobody wants to order anything, fine. And it stayed that way. And then they've closed the damn White Spot.
Yeah, that was prime real estate.
Haven't got enough. Oh yeah, he $250 million he got for that piece of real estate. $250 million. The brilliant mind behind all that was Nat Bailey. He knew where to put the restaurants.
Didn't you and Carol used to go and have milkshakes there?
Oh God, they're great. Unbelievable.
I missed that. Here's the thing, Red. I don't know that you and I will ever get a chance to talk again. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know what each day brings. But how would you like people to remember you?
As a contributor. Exactly. A guy that contributed to all the things that go on radio. In the early days, rock and roll was a dirty word or words. But, you know, that's what I'd like to be remembered for. Alan Freed in New York, he was an inspiration for me because he would go and throw these parties at theater. And I started doing the same thing. But yeah, he was my idol. I never got to meet him. I talked to him on the phone a couple of times. I never met him.
Yep.
And he was a pioneer in a true sense of the word. And he broke the bonds of, you know, what was interesting about Freed was the kids in the audience weren't all black. They were a mixture of black and white. And that was the future he saw. And he was right on the money.
Okay.
And that upset a lot of people. You
Yeah.
can imagine.
So as you talk about Alan Freed, I'm thinking, how are people going to remember Red Robinson? What do you want them to? I mean, you can't tell them what to say or do, but how would you like to be remembered?
I think you probably agree. Be remembered as a good dad.
Yeah.
Because my kids mean everything to me.
Yeah.
And also a contributor, you know, to a music genre that's lasted all this time. I remember when I started at CKWX, the guy said, nobody will remember Paul Anka or anybody else. And I said, I disagree. And was I right? Yes. You either know it or you don't.
And you gave, here's the thing, and some of the memories that you'll never know about because you affected people's lives. They remember the tunes. They remember being on you being on the stage. They remember all of the music that you brought them. That you've a contributor. You're a contributor to memories, people's memory.
Well, that's a legacy. I guess that's my legacy. Yep.
Yeah.
You said it all.
Yep. That's what it is. Okay. If I'm going to play one, I got to play a tune here. So what do I play? What do I take you out with? What's your takeout song? How do I end this story? What do you want me to play on the turntable? I'm going to play some vinyl, by the way. Don't you love that? The fact that vinyl's back?
I think a theme I used called Right Now, Right Now with Alan Freed, and they did it live at the Paramount Theater in New York. And yeah, no, it was great. And it goes, right now, right now. And it takes off. That was my theme and I loved it.
Nice.
And just bopping with Ray Conniff. I know that sounds strange, Ray Conniff.
Ray Conniff.
But it wasn't.
Okay. Did you hold on to your record collection?
No, sold it years ago. Too bad.
Did it all go in one fell swoop? Like, was it broken up into bits and pieces or just somebody grabbed all of it?
Yeah, that's the only tragedy. Somebody who, I wish it was somebody that knew somebody who would buy them all or, you know, at a reduced price, whatever.
Yeah. And
keep them, but they never did.
Okay.
But I've got everything. I still got everything because of, you know, the modern method. MP3s, yeah.
Yeah.
Got every song.
You know, there you go. He's gone. Your camera's gone.
There's a sign on the window here saying
says,
low battery.
Yes, that's right. It says low battery, and you're running out of battery. I'll say goodbye, my friend. I'll say goodbye.
Okay, thank you. It's been fun.
It's Terry Mulligan. Terry Mulligan, your biggest fan in the whole world. Thank you, Red Robinson.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, buddy. So that interview with hello, I'm Terry David Mulligan. This is the TDM YouTube channel. That's part one of our two-part conversation with Red Robinson. He was in a retirement home at that point, and you can hear people making noise in the background and announcements being made, but it was still Red talking into a microphone. This second one took place 6 months later. He'd lost power in his voice. His hearing was failing him, but he still had his mind, and that's why I wanted to ask him some of the same questions that I asked in that last one, and more things that I'd thought about. And I didn't want to press him too hard, you know. I didn't want to challenge him. I wanted to just have a conversation. So I'm going to go back and ask some of the same questions I did in part one. He'll answer them a little differently. And then towards the end of this interview, it gets really interesting. He gets very thoughtful on where he's been and what he's done. I'm told that these are the last two interviews that he ever did. But I do want to thank somebody, Phil Mackesy, who was Red's assistant and kept the website alive, the Instagram accounts, all the photos alive and going crazy. And I want to thank Corey Wood for doing the editing on this video, because it was tough. And adding the photos, just adding stuff to it. I appreciate it very much. So here's part two of our conversation with the legendary Red Robinson, now a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Order of British Columbia as well. Here's Red, part two. Can you imagine, Red, if you had film cameras rolling in your studio when you were doing interviews with all those rock and roll fans? You came away with audio and you came away with photos. How cool would it have been to have videos of those interviews?
Oh, it would have been sensational. But I mean, we only dreamt about it. We didn't know that it was going to come, you know.
That's true. But you did, by the way, one of the things I admire about your career is that you always had someone shooting camera. Someone was taking photographs, because I have none of those things. You were doing smart stuff there.
Oh, yeah. But I always took a photographer with me in the studio. And I insisted that the promotion department have a camera, because, I mean, you only capture these people once, I thought.
You only had one chance. That's absolutely right. You only had one chance. I mean, the shot of you and Elvis and the teddy bear has been seen by millions of people. Millions.
No. The guy that shot that had a Hasselblad photo camera.
And is he still with us? Is that photographer around?
Did he what?
Is that photographer around?
No.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when he died, he's a very nice man. Rolly Ford was his name. Rolly Ford.
All right.
When he died, his son burned all the negatives.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell is that about?
Threw him in the furnace.
That's nice. Okay, I started a list, Red, as we were setting up for this interview. I wrote originals. I was thinking of when you and I were at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
And those originals were being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
And I started the list with Elvis, the Everly Brothers, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Chuck Berry. Who am I forgetting? There's one other name that should be there.
Bill Haley? I don't know. Bill Haley? Little Richard?
Okay, let's take them one at a time, just for a sec.
Yeah.
Richard Penniman, what did you hear about Little Richard before he got to you when he was coming into Vancouver? What did you know about him?
Just that he wrote some incredible rock and roll songs. I mean, not many people could do them. People tried, but like Bill Haley, but it didn't come across until Presley came along, and he gave an interpretation that was so close to the original that it was unbelievable.
Did you hear about how wild Little Richard was?
Oh, I knew how wild he was.
Had you heard or had you seen him?
Pardon?
Had you heard about it or had you seen him in action?
Oh, yeah. And then I saw him in action. It was pretty embarrassing for a young guy to see what he was doing. He was playing around with a drummer,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, playing around, really.
um,
I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. That's good. That's good. When it comes to Richard, we'll leave it at that. I added Jerry Lee Lewis to that list.
Oh, yeah. I brought the two of them in, and thanks to Bruce Allen, the show carried on. But Lewis wouldn't get off the stage and let Little Richard perform. So Bruce went over and cut his eye and said, listen, break this up. We've got to bring on Richard. I'm okay, he said. And he kept playing. I'm talking about Jerry Lee. They hated each other. And, yeah. Bruce finally said, listen, would you cut it out? I've had it. And so I guess, anyway, Richard came on and blew him away by playing, Rip It Up and Ready Teddy and all those great rhythm blues things that he wrote.
It's interesting because there's a later live concert called The Greatest Live Show on Earth, and it's Birmingham, Alabama on a Saturday night. And Jerry Lee Lewis sings 3 Little Richard songs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He liked his songs. I think he liked the guy. It was just, they were both very competitive. How about Fats Domino, who we loved a lot?
There was a classy man. There was a guy that when I interviewed him, I thought, my God, I can't make him out because he had that Creole attitude and an accent. It mumbles. It sounded like mumbles to me. But then I found out it was Antoine, that he was just talking in his normal language.
Yeah, he's got
nice man.
that
nice man.
That New Orleans accent.
Yeah, he was terrific. Just a lovely guy. And
what I loved about him was the fact that he couldn't hold a note like a singer should or would, but he sang in his own way. He got the music to us.
Oh yeah, no, that's very true. What you say, he couldn't read music. He just played it by ear.
Let me ask you about. I've discovered late in life that Fats Domino in 1949.
He what?
He recorded a song in 1949. Fats did, called the Fat Man.
Yeah.
And when you and I have always talked about what was the first rock and roll record, for me, it started with the Fat Man, Fats Domino, 1949, which is,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Because
I would go that way.
It had everything that rock and roll was going to have.
I know.
Yeah, he was just 5 years ahead of it.
What a lovely guy he was. I really miss some of them, and he's one of them.
Do you miss Chuck Berry?
Not really, but I understood him.
We've lost both the Everly boys. The Everly brothers are gone. It's you can hear the Everly brothers in the Beatles music, of course.
Of course, but they were inventive. They played all their lives with their mom and dad, and the Everly brothers came into being when Archie Blyer, who was Arthur Godfrey's, musical leader,
right,
discovered them and put them on Cadence Records. That was just a magic time for them.
I love those guys. Also, in that original induction class in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was Elvis. Have you seen the movie yet?
Yes, twice. Twice I've seen it. I thought the kid was good. When it opened up, I thought, how is he going to carry this? but he was magical, and he sang his own stuff. That's what blew me away.
Now, this is the truth, the Hollywood truth. They like playing around with real life facts in Hollywood. How much of that story do you know to be fact?
Oh, I'd say majority of it, but there were a whole bunch of big mistakes I thought they made. They leave Priscilla out on the sideline. She was the driving force for him. And, a lot of other little things that they left out, out of the movie. We're talking about the movie, right?
That's right. Yep.
But I enjoyed the fact that I'm watching a kid who's young, doing what Elvis did when he was young, and he's carrying it off. He's making it happen.
Did you see Elvis later in his years in Vegas? Did you go to any Vegas shows?
No, I did not.
Is it because you weren't interested in the older Elvis?
No, that didn't bother me at the age. What the hell? He's only 2 years older than I am. He was. No. I went to see him in Seattle, one of the last performances he ever did on the road. And he put on weight, but you know what? Everything you could say about him negatively, he never lost his voice.
Red, tell me about when you get a chance, when you're not answering questions, what do you think about? What's your life like? What do you remember back on your life?
I'm doing a lot of reflecting now, but then what the hell? That's what we all do when we're old.
Yes, sir.
No, I look back and I'm very happy with what I did. And, I have no regrets. Somebody said, how can you have no regrets? I have none.
You were in the right place at the right time.
That's correct. That's absolutely right.
And you ran with it.
I ran with it. My God, I was working. You ever look at the schedule? When I went from CJOR over to WX, I was on the air 50 hours a week. I loved every minute of it. I worked 6 days a week in those days. You must remember. Did you work 6 or 5?
I can't remember. It's a blur. I honestly cannot remember. Here's what I remember, Red, and we share this. It didn't matter. I was still going to get on microphone. I was still going to work. We loved doing what we did so much.
Oh yeah, that's the tragedy of it all. All the guys that did it for love are unemployed now, or they're dead. One or the other. I'll take this one. You were at that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Wasn't that an exciting moment?
You and Cousin Brucey.
Yeah. You remember who cut the ribbon?
Richard and Aretha? Who was the woman right in the middle? Was somebody's
Little Richard and the widow of John Lennon.
Yes. Yoko Ono.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember it like it was I remember it very, very well. And I remember how lucky we were to be there.
Boy, oh boy. The memories are all there. This is memory lane.
So, when's the last time you turned on a radio?
Say that again?
When's the last time you turned on a radio?
Oh, God. I don't even remember the year. I'm not listening to the radio anymore. Haven't for a long time. Most of us don't listen because there's no entertainers left.
Yeah.
There's a few, but not many.
But you know what has made a comeback?
What?
Vinyl.
You're kidding.
Vinyl records.
Oh, I know that. That's right. You're right.
They can't make them fast enough.
Can you believe it? Well, it had a different being. It was a different type of audio. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And even if it had a pop, who cared? Had a scratch.
It's astonishing how vinyl has made a comeback. Not 45s, albums. Vinyl albums are being printed by the millions, and people are
I
getting
know.
people are going to get turntables.
Oh God, the biggest seller in music stores or associated with music was I'm going to say 78. That's a pretty big. Were LPs. They couldn't keep them in stock. You know, they sold them out.
Did you hold on to your albums?
No, I sold them all.
Okay.
Sadly,
And your 45s?
no, I got rid of everything. Yeah.
You didn't put them in a furnace, did you?
No, I sold them to another collector, actually,
Okay.
a guy that appreciated the music.
Yeah, if whoever goes to it has to be somebody who loves what you loved.
That's right. That's right.
Who's the last singer-songwriter voice that you in present day that made an impression on you?
A songwriter,
Yeah, singer or songwriter?
Paul Anka, as a songwriter,
Yeah.
unbelievable. Look at the stuff he did.
Yeah.
He did the theme song for The Tonight Show, da, 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 da. And he did all the other things. She's a Lady with Tom Jones. He wrote all these things. And of course, the ones he's more famous for are the ones that Elvis sang.
Yeah. Has anybody played you Beyonce?
Pardon?
Has anybody played you a record by Beyonce?
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about this. I never say it right. It's say it again.
Beyonce.
Yeah. A guy here in the restaurant was at the last show she did in Vancouver. And he's got a video up on the screen playing all the time. I've got so much sardine or whatever you call it on my plate. I said, look, would you just turn to Glenn Campbell, somebody I know.
Okay. Now, Red, here's the thing. Just a couple of questions. I'll let you go. Here's the thing. Hang in there, Phil. If I could come over to your place now with a recording device and a couple of turntables and a recorder and invited you to do a radio show, what would the first three records be? Give me the first three records you'd want to play.
Well, the first one I ever played on the radio was Marie with the Four Tunes.
Okay.
People go, what, Marie, that old Dorsey song? I said, yeah, but it was done bebop style. And the kids in the studio would get up and dance while we're playing it. That would be one.
Okay.
Another would be Singing the Blues with Guy Mitchell.
Nice.
Why Guy Mitchell? First of all, he was a nice guy. And he got the name because his real name was Al Cernick. But he got the name Guy Mitchell because he was the guy that Mitch Miller liked. And you look at the library that he put up. And then the third one would be an Elvis song. Anyone you want to pick, because he was just a wonderful singer. What surprised me the other day was my brother said, you know, I really just discovered Elvis Presley. I can't believe it. But I think he's got a lasting ability to stay, in present. You know, he will.
Yep.
Elvis will stay in the present.
Yes, he will. And so will the Beatles.
Pardon?
And so will the Beatles.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Even though two of them are gone. What the hell? Elvis is gone.
I see Loretta Lynn passed away a couple of days ago.
Who?
Loretta Lynn.
Oh, yes, yes. She played Vancouver quite often.
Yeah.
Down there on the border.
Yeah. They apparently, I saw an article that she played in a place they called the Chicken Shack.
That's right. That's right. That was just on the other side of the border from where she was living at the time. When she got married, she was 14 years old. She moved up here with her husband at the time, Dewey.
Yeah.
And people said, you got to come down and hear this girl. And I did. And I thought, my God, she's unbelievable. 14. That's like Brenda Lee.
Yeah. By the way, did you happen to see any of the visits by Richard Pryor, the comedian?
No, I never did. No,
Okay.
he played the cave a lot. He
Yeah.
played Izzy's.
He
Yeah.
played Izzy's. Yeah, it was Izzy's that I saw him in.
Oh, yeah, no. He was an incredible wit. They can't duplicate these people.
No.
They're-
How about, I haven't asked you about Ray Charles. Did you have a friendship with Ray Charles?
Oh, yeah. I think the last time I saw him, I said, we have something in common. And he said, what's that? Looking at me. You can't see, of course. But I said, well, first of all, your last name is not Charles, it's Robinson. Oh, yeah. He said, you know that? I said, oh, yeah. Ray Charles Robinson.
Yeah.
Charles was your middle name. Very smart. And I did an interview with him, and he was amazing. But he started out in Seattle. I forget the name of the group that he was with, but he was with a group, and he was, kind of nobody. But when he went single, then he became a giant. Everybody tried to sound like Ray Charles.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about a lot of guys. Who was the women artists that got your attention? Ladies.
Oh, Connie Francis, I was in love with her. But then what guys weren't? She was fantastic. And a little person like Brenda Lee, not very tall, very tiny.
How about Willie Nelson and his songs?
What's that?
Willie Nelson. How about Willie's songs?
Oh, Willie Nelson. Willie was the morning man at a station in Vancouver, Washington called K-Van, and he was the morning guy. When I started at KGW, everybody was talking about Willie Nelson, but he left before I got there and moved to Nashville, where he was an outcast. He wasn't even welcome in Nashville. And then he brought out, one of his hits was brought out by Patsy Cline.
Crazy. What a song. What a song.
He was a great songwriter.
It's still being recorded. It's still literally once a month, there's a new version of Crazy comes out.
Oh, yeah. Another version of it. It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy, yeah.
Okay, Red, I'll leave you alone. Listen, here, buddy.
Well, thanks, Terry. Thanks for this.
I think about you a lot.
It's nice to see one of my contemporaries still working.
Thank you. I am. I'm still talking into this microphone. I just thought if you could talk to your fans now today to leave them a message, what would it be?
Whatever you like to do in life, pursue it. Don't give up. Never give up. And go and get, the dream you have. Make it come true. You can make it come true. I made it come true. I was a kid when I look back, 16. Yeah. And I never forget the people that gave me that break. Al Jordan, Vic Waters. They were local people who were very big on the air. So pursue your dream, is what I'm saying. Don't let anyone tell you it's the wrong thing. There's no money in it, whatever. Don't let them talk you out of it.
Thank you, Red.
Thank you, Terry.
Red Robinson, the guy who brought rock and roll to Canada and literally changed lives. If you were 13 or 14 or 15 or 16 years old and you heard that music coming out of your radio, you were set free. You were set free. You didn't have to listen to what your parents listened to. You could march to the beat of a different drummer, and did. Wow. Amazing. We lost him. We lost Red Robinson. He's got books out there, books that are written about him and by him. The Last DJ, The Last Broadcast. Start right there. And I want to thank all of his friends for sending their kind thoughts our way. Red Robinson, the man, the last DJ, my friend. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.